Hello, everybody. My name is Dylan Volman, and it is K Sports Sunday. I am joined next to me by my friend Jason Siegel. How are you doing today, Jason?
Good. How are you?
And joined on the Back Talk set, we are joined by TJ and John Hand. How are you guys doing today?
Doing pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. All right. Well, later on in the show, we'll be talking to Comcast Sportsnet broadcaster Kevin Walsh. But right now, let's start on the topic that's on everyone's mind, March Madness. Jason, how is your bracket doing?
It's doing all right. I have, Georgetown lost right in my Final Four. I have Ohio State going all the way, who survived Iowa State today, so that was good. And then, I believe I also have Louisville and Miami, I think, also.
Pretty good picks. You got 3 out of the 4 teams left.
So far, yeah.
How about you guys, TJ and John?
Well, I'll tell you this. My bracket has seen better days.
Yeah.
2 of my Final Four are already out, which is not great at all. I had Georgetown and New Mexico. I kind of thought they didn't. I thought they'd get past Gonzaga because Gonzaga is just awful. And
Well, I mean, usually 1 seed doesn't have awful in the criteria, but
I was kind of taking a shot, Dylan. But
All right. Well, they are taking shots at me, and that is because I had picked Gonzaga to win it all. As some of you may know, they lost yesterday to
St. Louis.
to 9 seed Wichita State. I also had the 4 seed St. Louis in my Final Four, who lost to 12 seed Oregon yesterday, which I'd like to talk about. 3 12 seeds beat 5 seeds in the first round. Why do you think that is, Jason?
Wait. I think we neglected to say that I have 4 out of my 4 Final Four picks still in here. I think, am I the only one in this room right now? I think I do. I would like to congratulate myself on that one. All right, go ahead.
We're all very proud of you, TJ.
For the 12 and 5 seeds, Ole Miss and Oregon, I think, were very underseeded. Oregon's a team that won the Pac-12 tournaments and beat UCLA. UCLA, I believe, was a 6th seed. They lost to Minnesota.
That's correct.
Which
and
I
Ole
picked.
Miss
just saying.
also won the SEC tournament. They beat Florida, who is a 3 seed. So I think it is. So I think the seeding was off for the 12 seeds, and then VCU beat Akron, which is no surprise. VCU was a 5.
What about the Cal-UNLV game?
You know, UNLV is being from a smaller conference. I think
Mountain West?
might have hurt them. Cal being in the Power 6 and the Pac-12. So.
Yep. I'm going to have to agree with you. I think Oregon and Ole Miss were underseeded. You know, winning that SEC championship against a top team like Florida, to me, that deserves a little bit better than a 12 seed. Also, we do have to factor in the most heavily upsetted team is the 5 seed against the 12 in the first round, at least over the past 10 years, to my knowledge. The Cal game, I like Cal. I think they were an underseeded team, even though not a lot of people think that. And I do not like Mountain West teams. I think that's the reason why UNLV lost. What do you guys think?
Well, there's some crazy statistic out there that says like 80% of the time a 12 upsets a 5 in the tournaments for the past couple years, which is crazy. And what you guys kind of just touched on is that maybe that these teams, these 12 seeds are getting underseeded. I mean, even though they come from like the SEC, which isn't a great conference, they still got past a pretty good team in Florida.
True.
So maybe they do get a little underseeded, but it's definitely interesting, and it's something that sometimes you overlook because it's such a wide margin of seeding that you say, oh, this 12 seed's definitely getting upset, but then they end up winning.
And you know, with Oregon being a 12 seed, I really liked Oklahoma State this year. I thought if they were, honestly, I had them beating Oregon, then I had them beating whoever they would face after that, St. Louis, but in this case, not St. Louis. So I had Oklahoma State going actually pretty far. I think that was Marcus Smart's team. I think he could have led that team, and I really liked them, and I thought that if they weren't facing Oregon for that 12 seed, and Oregon, I will agree that Oregon was not rightly placed at a 12 seed, they could have been a 9.
And I think Oregon and Ole Miss, both of them, they were upset about being 12 seed. They were motivated to try to get a higher seed. They wanted to prove the selection committee and everyone else wrong. So that's why I picked Oregon, because I felt they were motivated, although I did pick Wisconsin to go to the Elite 8, which was unfortunate.
I got to tell you, though, even though Ole Miss was underseeded, I was really surprised by that Wisconsin game. Wisconsin had beaten Michigan earlier this year, and I thought, they were a team that had been very hot as of late. To me, that Ole Miss game was a huge motivational win for them, and they're facing LaSalle today.
Yeah.
I think Ole Miss can win this game and go to the Sweet 16. How much further they will go, I do not know. That is another question. It is March Madness, so we don't know for sure.
Good point. And Wisconsin, I think they were suffering from fatigue. They had they had beaten Indiana and then lost to Ohio State, making it to the Big Ten Conference Tournament Championship. So I think they were suffering a bit from fatigue, which is part of why they lost.
Now, Dylan, I don't know if I'd be so quick to say Ole Miss was underseeded in this. They lost to teams like South Carolina and Mississippi State. They lost to some no-names teams in their regular season.
That is true, but I think that championship and the tournaments for the conferences are really where a team shows up and does best. I mean, that's the closest thing you'll get in the season to March Madness, a tournament. So I think that's where teams really show how they will do in March Madness, and that's why I was really disappointed that Ole Miss was underseeded, because I knew they would give Wisconsin a run for their money, and it would be a tough game. All right, so there were 2 games that have been finished today already. Ohio State hitting a 3 with 0.5 seconds left to beat the 10 seed Iowa State, and in the final minute, Indiana beating Temple 68-62. What do you think of those games, Jason?
Oh, Ohio State, thank God that they won, or else my bracket would have been busted. And, you know, it was very lucky. There was a controversial offensive foul called, I believe it was a charge, on Iowa State. And because Aaron Kraft made the 3 for Ohio State still would have won, or maybe tied if the player hit the free throw. But it changed the momentum in the last minute of the game. And if they didn't have that momentum, I don't know that Aaron Kraft would have been able to make that 3, and Iowa State would have won.
You know, first I want to talk about the Indiana Temple game, because we have a huge Indiana fan, Indiana alumni, Lauren, who is not on the show right now, who's one of our producers, and you could just see during the entire game she was incredibly nervous. So I'm, you know, congratulations, Lauren. I was kind of rooting against you because if my bracket's busted, everybody's bracket has to be busted. But congratulations to Lauren and your Hoosiers. To me, one thing stood out is that Indiana was down until a couple minutes left, and that they came back and they pushed in those final minutes. And to me, that's where it's, you know, in football and in any sport, those last 2 minutes, it's the 2-minute drill. You know, it's where teams are made and where teams are broken.
And that is why I picked Indiana to win it all, because they can pull it out in the late games. And they battled all this year. They've been the number 1, they've dropped down, and then they got back to number 1. So they've been battling this whole year. They've come back in those last 2 minutes, like you mentioned, and I think they will win it all. And so for my bracket's sake, I hope they win it all.
See, I can't have faith in a team like Indiana who loses to, even if it's like an after a 5-seed team, around a 5 seed, if they're going to be a 1 seed, be the best team in the nation, I can't trust a team like that.
That's true, that's true.
All right, thank you guys for your comments. Well, last week we talked to a man who has experience in the NCAA tournament, former Tennessee coach and current ESPN broadcaster, Bruce Pearl. Let's take a look at some of the questions that we asked Bruce.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Rex Trailer Boomtown studio. I'm TJ Horgan for Back Talk Sports. Alongside me is Dylan Volman. We have some March Madness bracketology for you today. We have Bruce Pearl coming on, longtime head coach and also expert analysis from ESPN right now. You were a coach at Tennessee, and you also had Stanford, Iowa, Southern Indiana, Milwaukee, but now you're giving analysis for ESPN. What did you like better? Do you like being on the sideline coaching the games, or do you like being the guy in the studio?
Well, I like coaching better, but there's more to coaching than just coaching. Would I rather be calling a game or coaching in a game? No, I think I'd rather be coaching in a game. But there are other aspects of the profession, like recruiting, and I guess just recruiting that I definitely don't miss. I loved evaluating players. I really enjoyed watching summer ball and high school basketball and seeing if I could see something in a young man and where he might fit in and how he would fit in with other guys. I loved that. I just didn't love the chase of the recruiting aspect of it.
Coach, this term bracketology and picking for tournaments did not exist 20 years ago. What has made this cult so big that even the President of the United States is making picks nationally?
Well, it tells you that this is truly America's game. Dr. James Naismith invented this game right down the street from where you guys are calling from in Springfield, Massachusetts. And obviously it's taken on this March Madness is something very, very special.
Now, when analyzing the brackets and looking at a team like Kansas, who relies on their seniors, their older talent instead of their youth, would you bank on a team who has more experience, or would you bank on a faster, younger team?
Well, I think experience is something that I would look for. Guys that are hungry, this is their last year. They're going to play every possession like their life depended on it. For younger players, sometimes there's always next year. Well, I like guys that this is it, and this is their chance to have that one shining moment. And you know, a lot of times teams that have been in the tournament before and maybe didn't advance like they wanted to, those would be the teams that I'd be looking for.
Coach, this year with the #1 overall team in the country, there's been a lot of moving around and uncertainty. Do you think this is the year to pick for upsets in the brackets?
Yeah, I do. I mean, when 22 of the top 22 times the top 5 team in the country lost to an unranked opponent, and that just tells you about the parity. I mean, unranked teams beating top 5 teams like that pace, that just doesn't happen every year. So I would anticipate there are going to be a number of upsets. There are going to be some difficult matchups. The differences between the haves and the have-nots have shrunk. And it's a very exciting time to be in the NCAA tournament if you've got a good basketball team, because there's nobody in this field that's unbeatable. I mean, last year Kentucky was unbeatable. They were unbeatable. And Kendall Marshall was healthy and Fab Mello played for Syracuse. Those two teams were going to get to the Final Four. But this year it is absolutely wide open.
As a two-time coach of the SEC Coach of the Year, if you had to give out a Coach of the Year award this year, who would you give it to and why?
That's a good question. I think I would give it to Andy Kennedy, and that's one of the reasons why I think you have the award when the year's over. But they always make you have those awards before the conference tournament, and you don't take into consideration of full-body work. I got no problem with Billy Donovan getting it because I think Billy Donovan really overachieved this year with this club. I don't think this Florida club is that talented. I think I was in the league with Billy for 6 years, and there are 4 or 5 teams who are more talented than this group. But this group plays great defense, and that's how they've won so many games. But I think they struggled to score, and they've struggled to win close games. And so for me, I'd give it to Billy Donovan during the regular season, and I'd give it to Andy Kennedy in the postseason.
We'll be right back after the short break, but stay tuned because we'll be joined by TK and Benji. Thank you to John Hand and to TJ for joining us. When we come back, we will also be interviewing Kevin Walsh, Comcast Sportsnet broadcaster, and we'll have talk about the Boston Red Sox. Stay tuned.